The legend of Morgan Barron was born last night. You were in the building. You made the report, and I loved your chirp back on Bieksa, who did besmirch you at one point on the thing. Although he does that,
he can't handle the truth. He can't handle the truth.
You were in the building for that. That was I had to turn away from the television as they kept showing it. It was just such a scary and dangerous play. Tell us what it was like behind the scenes as you tried to get information on Barron. And then I can tell you, we were talking in the chat about how inspiring it was just to fans to see him come out of the tunnel with that full cage and be ready to go again. I can't imagine what that was like for his teammates. But 75 stitches is an insane number, Sean. How did you learn that? And what was it like as, the initial scare of what had happened? He goes in, and gets sewn up for well over. I mean, it took the end of the first period and through the intermission of the second period of the event that people are talking about around the hockey world, and frankly, even outside of hockey. Just that this guy took such a dangerous play, got stitched up, and then was back out there helping his team win a massive hockey game.
Well, let's just say this. The Jets organization was firing on all cylinders last night. Kenny and I went out after we did Kenny and Rennie last night. We went to the New York piano bar, and we ran into some of the Jets trainers and equipment staff there. And I walked over and I said, geez, for a game for you guys, it felt like, the coach did his job. Clearly the general manager has already done his job in getting the team where they are. Mark Chipman's down here. He's at morning skates. He's, looks in fine form. Everyone, the PR staff, I gave them a shout out on Kenny and Rennie last night because, man, oh man, were they ever on fire last night. They're working with us. They're working with the Vegas broadcast. They're working with CJOB. They're working with ESPN. There's rankings of when players are asked for, who goes to who, and they were just firing on all cylinders last night. And it's the organization that made us aware of the stitch count, also made us aware the doctor that stitched him up. You want to know why it's 75 stitches? I think I talked about this in the show last night. I've been stitched up, I think, about 7 or 8 times in my, hockey career.
You'd never know it, Sean. You'd never know it.
Yeah. But, you get an inch cut, and it's usually, I think that's about 4 to 5 stitches or something like that. Well, that's for schlubs like me who they don't mind. They look like Frankenstein the older that they get, right? You're a hockey player. You want them to, you're going to get cut a lot. You want to make sure they look good. So it's a plastic surgeon that's doing the stitching. And, it was described to me yesterday as like micro stitches, right? Like these tiny stitches that you can barely even see, because if you look at, when he gets the bandage off, you're going to look at Morgan Barron and you're not going to see 75 definitive stitches with the tied ends a little bit loose and hanging out. It's these tiny, tiny little stitches that are put together by a plastic surgeon who's trying to make sure that this scar is as invisible as it could possibly be. So I do think that there's something to be said about the idea of what we, the laymen, see as 75 stitches. That's something that would start, from your ankle and go to the very top of your leg to your hip. That's what it would take for us to get 75 stitches. This is a different case.
Well, there are layers of stitches in something like that. Like you're getting stitched up inside, and then they're bringing it closer and doing it again. I mean, that was a deep cut.
Yeah, excuse me. You're working your way from the inside out. So there's a number of stitches at one layer and the next layer and then the outer layer and all that kind of stuff. But it was interesting you talked about it, that feeling when he came out. We were trying to time this in a way because the Jets PR staff was so on point. They'd said to us, had this many stitches, but he's returning. So we got to kind of build up the idea that the Morgan Barron return is imminent. It's coming, folks.
Oh, you guys had a bug on the screen. I mean, we were sitting there in the bar with everyone watching, and the sound was on, but there's people talking, everyone's firing up.
Yeah.
And you saw the bug. Morgan Barron will return. The buzz through the place when that went on. I'm like, are you serious? Oh, it was so cool.
Exactly. So we get to do that, and we get to say that. I get to make that report live on air. And then there was a point where the Jets PR staff was saying, okay, he's almost coming out, right? So they were giving us play by play behind the scenes. He's about to come out, and there was this point at which we were doing this story, and I was going to do the story, and it was, an entirely different story, and I had to be prepared. In my ear, my producer Scott Carruthers, who's just an absolute beauty, and if you liked what you saw from the game, like you're talking about, that's Scott Carruthers, it's his vision coming alive. He's an absolute pro, and I'm so happy to be doing this series with him. They call it the No Stress series out of all the series that Sportsnet is doing right now, just because we've got such an awesome crew that is jam-packed with Winnipeggers, technical people who are down here doing their work. It's the No Stress series because it's hard to have stress when you're working with so many pros. But Butter, Scott Carruthers, his nickname is Butter, is in my ear, and he's saying, okay, you're doing this story, but at some point you got to switch to it because the PR staff is saying that Morgan Barron could come out any second. So I'm doing this story, and I'm kind of hyping it up. I'm kind of drag my feet and not going to play, but make the story last as long as it can so that I can say, and by the way, guys, have a look down the tunnel, do almost like a WWE introduction as, by God, there goes Morgan Barron, right? And you're hoping for that moment, and we just missed it, but we still were able to do it kind of in play. We wouldn't have been able to do that if, the likes of Gregor Buer or Scott Brown with the Winnipeg Jets weren't absolutely firing on all cylinders last night. They helped create great TV. The other interesting part, and I'll dive into this just a tiny little bit. I don't want to do too much behind the scenes stuff, but you talked about how hard it was to watch the Morgan Barron play on instant replay over and over again. We were reached out to by the Jets PR staff and said, do we really need to be showing this over and over again?
Good for them. It was churning my stomach.
Right? Good for them to do that. And I will say the reason towards the end that we were doing it is, you'll notice the player, I believe it was Braden McNabb, sees what happens, the Vegas player, and reaches out. You can see the concern on his face. Like the game stops for Braden McNabb, which says a lot, because even Morgan Barron said in that moment, what was he thinking? He's trying to figure out if the puck crossed the line. Braden McNabb stopped worrying about the puck crossing the line and started worrying about, showing his humanity in the moment and trying to check on Morgan Barron and see if he was okay. The last couple times we showed that was we're trying to show the humanity of hockey on the ice, as I'm pretty sure it's Braden McNabb, a good friend of Nate Schmidt's, by the way, was trying to make sure in that moment that there's something horrific hadn't happened to Morgan Barron. That's an explanation of why you were seeing what you were seeing on the ice. It should be noted that, there are thoughts consistently going. I can tell you this. If we go back to the Mark Scheifele hit on Jake Evans, I can tell you there's a version of that hit that was never seen by anyone outside of the people in that truck, because it was so disturbing, the camera angle that was caught of that Mark Scheifele hit on Jake Evans, that it never saw the light of day. These are the considerations that are made in the truck behind the scenes to make sure that we're honoring the players on the ice. So for those of you who are wondering about us showing that over and over again, there was a reasoning behind it. There was thought put into the kind of gruesome nature of it. There's a balance there. Do we always nail that balance 100%? It's impossible to do that, but we're trying.
Well, and listen, I mean, I know it wouldn't have been if the result was a lot worse. I mean,
no doubt.
It was a lucky one. And
if something terrible had happened, yeah,
I'm pretty sure it was Chandler Stevenson actually that was the
Chandler Stevenson. That's who it was. Yes, that's why I kept doubting myself.
Yeah, no, it's all good on that. But anyways, what a way to start off this series, and that is just one of those little things of of one member of a team, stepping up, kind of going beyond, and you wonder whether he would have come back to a game if that was the regular season. Bottom line is everything is on the line come playoff time, and the Winnipeg Jets showed it.